Hey, I'm back again. I'm going to do another story time. This time, I'm going to tell two stories. The first one is probably going to be my shortest one. Um, this is the story time about when I used to have two guys as roommates, and everybody constantly assumed that I had some kind of dealings with one or both of the guys that I lived with which I never had any dealings with neither of the guys that I lived with. All right, so um I had a situation where I was trying to find a place, and one of my closest friends to me, she tells me about a friend of hers who is looking for a roommate. Her friend was a male, and he had already lived with his best friend. So I'm gonna create some names for them because just to protect their identity. I ain't trying to put them on blast or nothing. So I'll say my friend's friend, who was the owner of the place, I'll call him Prime, like prime rib, Prime, and I'll call his best friend Kai, Prime and Kai. Okay, so I lived with Prime and Kai for like a few months. I didn't live with them for long because I ended up having to move out because Kai, the best friend, he moved in with his new baby mama, who was the female that he had pregnant at the time. And Prime, the homeowner who was my best friend's friend, he was also moving as well out of town, moving to like Virginia or something. So the bills was way too high for me to pay by myself. So I had to move. But while I was living there, I can honestly say that this place was one of the best roommate situations I ever had. Even though it was two guys. Thing about it is those guys were not um drama guys. Like they were not drama filled guys. They like lived life regularly. But there is a twist to this story because even though those roommates were the best roommates I ever had, minus one person, and that one person would be the best friend's baby mama. So y'all, let's get into it. By the way, I didn't have a crush on either one of these guys. I looked at them like brothers more so than anything. So that's neither here nor there. The best friend, baby mother, like I said, the female that he had pregnant at the time, she kept making comments and kept like trying to stress that she felt like I was coming for her boyfriend or I was trying to be with him. Um, because things had happened like quite a while ago, probably like definitely over 10 years ago now. I'm not exactly sure about the details of why she was saying that she felt that way, but I know she ain't had no ammunition to feel that way. Because, first of all, I stayed to myself and mainly stayed in my room. And the only time that I hung out or busted up with my roommates was when I was downstairs, which is most of the time not the case because I usually always was either in my room by myself or I wasn't home. So, you know, she kept stressing like she really felt like I was trying to be with her guy, and I'm like, I don't need your guy, honey. I'm good. Trust me. But yeah, I went through that experience, and I also, like I said, constantly went through the experience of every time I told people that I had two guy roommates, they automatically assumed that it was something sexual between me and one or both of the guys. And I'm like, y'all some nasty behind freaky weirdos. You know what I'm saying? Like, why y'all automatically all the time have to assume that just because a female lives with two males, that there's something freaky going on. I'm like, how immature can you be? And these were grown behind adults that was thinking like this. So that's why when I did end up having to move, even though I liked being there, I liked the vibe, we had a good, rotation of, just living. You know what I'm saying? Like we smoked together, you know, we went out a few times like as friends in groups and whatnot. And we had a real good, fun, like enjoyable time for like roommates. And I was kind of like disappointed when I had to move, but one thing that didn't disappoint me was I was kind of happy because I was like, you know what? I'm never getting two guys as roommates again. Even though it wasn't on purpose that it happened the first time, I'm like, I don't have time for people to be constantly falsely claiming that I'm doing stuff that I'm not doing just because I live with two guys. You know what I'm saying? So that was just some foolishness that was just like crazy and weird to me because I was like, yo, the energy, the vibe, our home was nice and clean. Like they weren't the cleanest guys in the world, but they also weren't the dirtiest. And one thing about them, when I did clean it up, they tried their best to like keep it up. So I'm finished with that story. Basically, my moral of that story was like, dang, how crazy it is that how judgmental people are, not knowing the situation, but just want to be assuming all the time. And the last, but certainly not least, story of the night that I'm going to talk about is the story of when I got drunk at a cookout where my boyfriend at the time was with me. But I got drunk at the cookout, and he and I was like barely talking to each other because we was like on the outs, kind of like okay, but not really. So, all right, this happened probably about 5 years ago now. So this happened a number of years ago too. So basically, the story is this: I was with my ex, and we was having a hard time around this time. Our relationship was complicated and weird, and we was just trying to pull through, staying living together, even though we probably shouldn't have stayed living together at that time. But um, my ex, he had knew somebody that lived in the neighborhood who was having a cookout. Now, mind you, at that time, he and I was like barely even speaking. I forgot what had occurred to the point that we were on the outs at the time, but we were. And I was making sure that the whole time that I was at the cookout, that I paid more attention to him than anybody else there. I made sure I spent time with him and all of that because guys always like to get upset if you even remotely try to talk to anybody or anything when you're around them. And I peeped that. Regardless of me doing that, he still had an attitude problem. So, make a long story short, I decided I was going to walk home because I was like, I'm not about to wait for him. You know what, y'all? I got to come back and talk about this because I got to go to the bathroom.